Greetings, everybody. Thank you for attending. Let's talk Star Trek. This is our 10 Forward Roundtable. Tonight, our topic is Starfleet starships. I want to introduce myself. I am one of your co hosts tonight. My name is Nobody Geek. Also with me is someone who has always been here, the ambassador, and definitely another good friend of mine, Mr. Myrr.
Cheers, everybody.
All right. How's it going?
Doing all right. How
Everybody
about
doing
you
good
guys?
tonight? Doing
May
awesome.
the 4th be,
May the
may the
4th
4th
be with you.
Indeed.
Even though we're talking about Star Trek.
It's
Yes.
always important to pay homage on those days to all of those who like inferior sci-fi. No,
But
just
on
kidding.
that-
Star Wars love, past, present, and future.
But on the subject of that, when you think, one of the great things about sci-fi is spaceships, starships. I mean, those are some of the coolest things. I mean, we've seen every kind of science fiction ship ever made, literally brought to life by imagination of some very talented artist. And a lot of those we all have come from Star Trek. So when you think of Starfleet starships, we have plethora to the point of when we first saw the original series, we only saw one type of ship, the Constitution class. We got to see the Miranda class, the Excelsior class in the movies, and then Galaxy class. And when it came to TNG and DS9, that's when we really got an explosion of all kinds of different variations of starships. And Federation always had such a unique design to me because, let's be honest, it makes no damn sense when you really look at it.
That's true.
But it doesn't matter. It's science fiction. It's beautiful. And, it's just they are nice that they stay kind of the same way. They have the same kind of configuration concept for the most part. There are exceptions. And so we're here tonight. We're going to talk about the ships we really like. And then we're going to talk about, get a little bit later, maybe the ships we didn't really care for so much. So with this, Myrr, you started
Yes,
us
sir.
last time with our captains. So tonight, Ambassador, I want you to take it away.
Okay, and just real quick, Jess, I got a message from Cheffzilla. His modem has died.
Okay.
So yeah, he's not gonna make it tonight, unfortunately.
All right.
So,
All right.
Someone get an engineer
Hey,
in
man,
there.
we understand.
yeah, somebody get Starfleet technical over there to Cheffzilla.
That's right. We need some.
yeah.
We need some techno babble. About 48 minutes, and it'll be fine.
I need whoever is near Cheffzilla to just let him log into your little router real quick. Just let him stream with us for a minute. It's all good after that.
As far as starships go for Star Trek, the two that I always really enjoyed, although I liked the design of the Starfleet ships by and large, but the two that I really liked were a little more irregular. Hint, hint. Was the USS Reliance from Wrath of Khan and the Defiant from Deep Space Nine, because when it comes to sci-fi, I like the military aspect. I like to know how things function in a military setting. And for me, these are two ships that very much hearken to the whole concept and the whole idea of Starfleet going in a more militaristic, less than a explorative point of view. Because there's just something about the design of these ships and just how they function in a combat situation that's very appealing to me. They're very aggressive looking. They're very sleek. They're very, well, to quote Tony Todd from Axanar Prelude, they're drip drop. There's no wasted space. They're lean, they're mean, and they have the capacity to blow you to smithereens.
Absolutely.
So that is what I absolutely love about the Defiant, and and not to mention the ships themselves. They have character. When you see the profile or a POV view of these ships, they are they look aggressive. These are ships that aren't just they're not like the profile of the Galaxy class or the Excelsior class ship or anything from Star Trek. They very much have that predatory, aggressive design to them, and that's something else I really appreciate, in particular in the movies that they take, or the movie and the TV show that they took place in, because these were the aggressor, or these were ships that very much were deep in the thick of combat. Now, the thing I would have loved to seen is the Reliant class under the control of a crew that was trained in how to use these ships in as Mr. Spock said, three-dimensional space, and see how they really function in a combat situation or anything. But I think, honestly, for what we got in Wrath of Khan, you get a good sense of how the Reliant, or the Miranda class as it's known, and everything in its class type functions.
Indeed.
Myrr, you're a big fan of the Miranda Reliant class. I'm going to let you continue on with that one.
I'm a starship whore in general. Just give me any kind of starship. I just love looking at them. I love seeing just all the little parts that make up the ship. And of course, the Miranda class is by and large my all-time favorite. And to definitely elaborate a little bit more off of what Ambassador was saying, how in with its creation, how it was everything that the Constitution was. It was all the Constitution's parts and get rearranged in a slightly different way, and to make it look completely different, and you could definitely see, hey, yes, this is definitely a Starfleet starship. You saw the saucer section. You see it's got torpedoes. It has phasers. It has warp drive. It has, dual nacelles, but they created a very, very different ship. And what made it interesting, especially in the Wrath of Khan, is that here you have you have another ship. This is the only other ship we have ever seen roughly outside of the Constitution class, and I mean aside from like animated series and all that, where this is just a very, very different ship. It is put aside for a very different purpose. You're talking about a relatively scientific specialized equipment for a scientific mission, but it could still kick a Constitution class's ass when it comes to actually fighting. It can definitely hold its own. It even got to a point where, like yesterday, I was doing a little bit of extra research on the Miranda class, and I found out, as far as functional space goes, it looks smaller than a Constitution class, but its functional space is larger than that of the Constitution class. And then,
really,
it is indeed. And now we are dealing with, like, once we made the transition over from motion picture era into Next Generation, all of a sudden you realize that the Miranda class is the workhorse of Starfleet. For every, let's say, every Excelsior class that you have out there, there's going to be at least 10 Miranda class ships out there and doing whatever assignment that you have out there in Starfleet. You have an extremely modular design. It's very simple, and it can be upgraded very easily to recent technology. And you also have, you're not really necessarily dealing with phaser arrays like you would on a Galaxy class. You're going to be dealing with, like, your normal, just a phaser point rather than the pulse phaser rather than a phaser array, but you can still upgrade them to make them plenty powerful. And so just in conclusion, my Miranda class ship, for what it lacks in beauty, it makes up for in sheer numbers. That's what
I will say this. I was doing some research on the Miranda class
Mhm.
this weekend as well. And one of the things I've got to say, it is definitely when you say versatile, I think we got to go into how versatile it is. If
Mhm.
you take that, say that upper torpedo launcher bay, that
Yeah.
can come off, and now it is maybe a supply ship, an escort ship. That's what its mission's
So
for.
if you,
It's in the safe zone, like the Lantry. It would basically be like what the Lantry was.
in
Whereas you could
in that regard, if you take off the torpedo bay, it becomes the Anton class ship. So it makes it different, but it's still a Reliant type vessel.
yeah, but it still falls into the Miranda
Yeah.
class era because it is modular. But also you can make it but you put that on there and then it becomes a border patrol kind of ship.
Mm-hmm.
And or you add the scientific sensors that can be modular on the side and it becomes a science vessel. And one of the other things that I thought was impressive was the fact that they pointed out that when the Miranda class was originally launched, it had a crew of over 200. By the time of the TNG era, it only needed a crew of about 35. Now, that tells you that that ship was extremely upgradable and adaptable to new technology.
Absolutely.
Yep.
You could take up a lot of the space that was afforded in that design and changes it around to the high tech equipment, whether it be tactical, whether it be science, whether it be engineering. And that's also why, again, this is going off of canon Star Trek, but why you have in Star Trek Online that the Miranda class or a type of class is your starter ship. It doesn't matter if you're in tactical, if you're engineering, or your science. There's where you start.
Yeah.
There was a game I played, and I can't remember the name. I think it was something like a Starfleet Academy. George Takei was the lead
Takei.
voice.
Yeah.
Takei.
Starfleet Academy.
Yeah, Starfleet Academy. And I would go into that simulator mode. And what I would try and do is I would try to take, like for example, just for fun, I would try to take as many Miranda class. I think you could have up to 3 or 4 ships. So I was like, take all these Mirandas and see if we can go up against a dreadnought and see how well they'd hold up. And I'll tell you what, if I did good, if you had a good captain, a good crew,
Yeah.
it was possible to do it, but you were not coming out unscathed.
No, you're
But
gonna take some serious damage.
And you're gonna lose some ships. But I'm telling you, in a 4-on-1 against a dreadnought of that era, it's possible. And I know because I did it. It was either 3 or 4, but I'm pretty sure it was, I think, 4. But I've done it. I decided to do it. I went toe to toe with a Constitution class with a Miranda and did win.
And the thing about that too is that they actually made it to where they weren't giving the Miranda class its due. And as it turns out, yes, the Miranda class starship is considered a light frigate, but it can hold its own even against it. You get 4 of them together. No, there's 4 Mirandas will definitely take out a dreadnought. They also made sure the Mirandas were also smaller in that in Starfleet Academy compared to what they actually should have been in the technical manuals.
When you think about it, though, the majority of the ships we all saw in regular series were all long range, specifically exploration. Now, okay, that's fine. That's one ship at a time here and there. Now, you can't tell me that you're going to leave one Miranda class patrol ship without having some backup nearby, depending on the situation. I'm just not buying it. I'm believing I would not be surprised if you had several of them always within a few sectors of each other to back each other up. It would make sense because if you think about it, it's one of the ships, especially during, the Battle of Wolf 359, the Dominion War. You see a Miranda class style ship somewhere in there. You see several of them, like 4 or 5. You'll see them in there. Unfortunately, usually getting destroyed, but they're there. They're fighting. They're not afraid to go toe to toe.
Yeah, I mean, in the Dominion War, they were more or less would be considered a light class frigate or even a destroyer, and compared to it depends on what the loadout was for the Miranda, since they were so optimally it could be so modular depending on what the actual purpose was that you wanted to put it there for. Some of them could be sensor boats. Some of them could be have a little extra firepower. Some of them can get a little extra speed. It was all, you see a Miranda, but you never knew what it was for.
Yeah, totally.
And it's, oh yeah. So, I mean, it was a great versatile ship. And I mean, you think about it, it is the granddaddy to a lot of the other future interpretation of smaller class ships that come along the way.
Mm-hmm.
And I would think the Defiant would definitely, the way they came up with the idea would definitely be on the idea of a Miranda, because unlike a Constitution class or a Galaxy class or something that size, I mean, a Miranda class can move. I mean, it can bob and weave. It can serpentine. It can get itself out of the way.
Well, yeah, that's also physics, though. It's got less mass than the other starships. I think one thing that this just Star Trek as a series really fails to convey is just how massive and big these starships are. Look at the Galaxy class was like close to a kilometer long. Same thing with a D'Deric X. You have something that's even larger than that. It's like almost a kilometer and a half long in size.
Yep.
So, totally. All right, yeah, definitely. Well, with that being said, Ambassador, did you have anything more you wanted to add about the impressiveness of the Defiant class?
I will say honestly, this was a first for Starfleet in a lot of ways. The Defiant class, it was a lot of firsts and everything. This was its first ever. This was Starfleet's first ever pure starship. And the interesting thing is, it was designed right along the same time as the Voyager class or the Intrepid class of ship. But the difference that we had with the Defiant was the fact that it was a ship that could cloak. And we had, I think, if I remember correctly, from Deep Space Nine, it had a Romulan cloaking device. But I think later on they installed a Klingon variant cloaking device or something along those lines, because there was some sort of issue with the Romulans allowing the Federation to use a cloaking device on one of their ships or something to that effect. So, but yeah, honestly, I loved the Defiant and everything. It was, as I mentioned, it was a great design for a ship. It was the first ship that I can recall that did not have a saucer section, and that the fact that the bridge was actually built further into the hull of the ship rather than the bridge being somewhat exposed like it was on, say, the Galaxy class or what have you. And the other fact and everything that module on the front of it was intended to be some sort of warhead or something, or a photon warhead that could be launched. I thought was another interesting feature of the ship, and the fact that it could take such a beating and still go and everything. And I love from First Contact when Riker says, "Tough little ship," and warp goes little. Unless I'm mistaken, I think that the Defiant was about the same size as a Klingon bird of prey, unless I'm mistaken, though. But I think they're about the same size and everything. And if you think about the bird of prey, though I know we're not talking about we're talking about specifically Federation ships. The bird of prey was a very well put together ship that could take a beating in and of itself. And everything depending on what it was going up against and what have you. But yeah, the Defiant, I think, was it was very much a leap forward for Starfleet, because they were designing ships like this to go up against the Borg, and I think also to go up against the other hostile powers within the quadrant and outside the quadrant. So
yeah, one of the one of the biggest flaws I would say that happened with Starfleet was they didn't. I mean, I know they tried to balance out their exploration with the military focus, but they really should have made pure warships like the Defiant, and that should have been something they always had available to them. That was always, I said, a bad thing. And it's like and we'll get into this one a topic another time, but I always was surprised how the hell Starfleet could win a damn war. I'm
Yeah, that's
sorry,
true.
but that's a topic for
Yeah.
another time. But the Defiant was something so different. It was just,
Yeah.
it looked completely different from any Federation ship we had really ever seen. It was modular. It had a cloaking device. It was designed for one purpose and one purpose only: war, nothing else. And I was like, Kira was like, I thought the Federation didn't believe in warships, and he's like, desperate times. And yeah, you're right. It was originally designed to fight the Borg, but once the Borg threat became less of a threat, Starfleet for some reason thought, oh, let's abandon this project. And that's another thing that's another pet peeve I have with Starfleet. They seem to just abandon stuff. They seem to just abandon stuff a little too easy.
Well, I think in that case, the Defiant was more or less. It was like one of their prototypes for but then they decided to go in another direction, like what they did with the Intrepid class, Sovereign, Akira, the Akira class,
Prometheus,
and also Prometheus and several other ships.
But yeah, I will say that it is a very nice, very well done ship, and bladed armor. They packed that sucker with everything, quantum torpedoes. Didn't they have even a better phaser? They have
phasers.
Those are pulse phasers.
Pulse phasers. Yeah, the pulse phasers.
And not only that, I mean, they had 4 of them facing front and then an array in the back. It's like, my God, that sucker has teeth.
Yeah. Well, it was designed to have teeth because this was, as we mentioned, was Starfleet's first iteration of a pure warship.
Yeah.
Which they realized they were going to need. So.
Yeah. So with that, I'm going to hit up on my personal favorite, the Excelsior class. Now, I love this ship design. It is in just one of the most beautiful. When I first saw it, the first time I actually saw this ship was in Star Trek IV: The Voyage Home, because I had not seen 1, 2, and 3.
Yeah.
No, I had not. This was the first one I'd actually seen. I don't know why I grabbed it. I was a kid, so I didn't really pay attention to Roman numeral numbers at the time. So I just grabbed it and put it in. And I knew it was Star Trek. That's all I knew. So I just pushed it in. I just put it in and watched it. And when I saw it, I thought, God, this is beautiful. And then, as the series grew on and then TNG came out, and I started seeing a little bit more of it, I was just like, it's a beautiful ship. And then it really finally got its due in Star Trek VI. And I actually got to see it on the big screen. And I got to see Captain Sulu, piloting it. And it's just a beautiful, well put together ship. It can hold out in a fight. And like the Miranda class, it's still in service 100+ years later. And this sucker is so upgradable. It can get those new holo emitters the Defiant class had. It could upgrade its shields. I mean, my ship went toe-to-toe with a Defiant, for crying out loud.
And had to be upgraded.
Yeah, that's my point. It could be upgraded, though. It's an upgradable, very adaptable ship, and it has so many different functions. I mean, it went from being an experimental ship that ultimately was a failure in its initial mission. But what it failed in its speed ended up becoming a ship that was so adaptable and so versatile that 100 years later, Starfleet's still using them and Starfleet's still upgrading them. And I mean, that just shows the ingenuity of a starship like that. It's, I'm sorry, Scotty finally gave it the respect it deserved.
Yeah,
I think he's just mad
after the right captain was at the helm.
Oh, well, yeah, there is that. I think he was just mad he wasn't part of the design team.
Otherwise, if his grandmother had wheels, it would be a wagon.
Hey, I'm sorry, but I'm a firm believer he's just mad that he wasn't part of the design team.
Probably,
possibility too.
There's definitely.
I think there might have been a little ego in there.
There's an era of very opinionated folks back in that time.
Yeah, just a little bit, maybe.
Yeah, they made a whole movie on it.
But yeah, the nice thing is you got to actually see it, and we got to see it actually in action in Star Trek 6. And then, we got to see it a lot in different battles. It was right up there with the Miranda class. So, I mean, it's a great patrol ship. It's a great humanitarian ship, exploration ship. It's got versatility to it that it's good for all kinds of stuff. And I'm sorry. And you know what? Like I said, if you got the right captain and you got the right upgrades, that sucker went toe-to-toe with a Defiant. I think it could go toe-to-toe with a Galaxy class. Galaxy class.
Well, and here's the thing. This is something you may not realize about the Excelsior class, was the fact that it was, in a lot of ways, a predecessor to the Galaxy class and all the earlier, and to the Enterprise B and the Enterprise C and everything in a lot of ways. Because if you look at the design of those ships in comparison to the Excelsior, they took a lot of inspiration from the Excelsior and incorporated it into the
Ambassador class, especially.
Yeah. And the Galaxy class.
And in the Galaxy class, took the nacelles and made it more of a curved, area on the side there. But you can definitely see the hereditary nature of from the B to the C to the D.
Well, actually, if you think about it, how many ships? I mean, I didn't even think about this, but if you think about it, after the Constitution class, unless I'm wrong, do you really see any V nacelles after that? Just regular V nacelle shapes.
The only one where you're going to see that is going to be in the oh god, what's the name of that? The Oberth class.
Oh, the Oberth class?
Yep.
Okay, I know what you're talking about, but those are down this way.
You're also going to see a little bit, maybe even into the Nova class, how it's more it's without the neck and does have the neck, but it has that similar V structure that you would see in the Constitution class.
Yeah. Now, I mean, we'd be remiss if we didn't talk about the Constitution class. I mean, that sucker was the first.
Yep.
Yeah.
And if you think about it, it's interesting. I didn't even realize this until I saw a picture of it, and I didn't realize that the way the Enterprise looked in the cage is not the same as it looks in Where No Man Has Gone Before.
No, there is a difference.
And I knew
that
there were. Yeah. And now I knew there were two models that they used. You could tell because one would have the what I called the cheese grater nacelles in the back, and one would have the oval in the back. And I think one was like 7 feet tall and one was like 3 feet tall, and they used them for different shots or something.
Yep.
So I knew that was there. And then, of course, I knew about the refit, of course, and everything. But, I had no idea that there was gauge. I had no idea that it actually had on the nacelles like little antennas sticking out of it. And I'm like trying to Eagle Moss actually just put it out as a special. They're doing it. I'm like, man, I got to get my hands on that one.
Yep, indeed.
Well, it's just about to come out, so I can.
I used
get it in a few weeks.
I used to have something very similar to that in back in the day, about 10 years ago.
So, okay, let's not be Debbie Downer, buddy.
Hey, I'm not. I'm starting tomorrow. I will be ordering the Polar Lights Constitution class refit for the original 1701. It's coming my way. It's like I got it for a really cheap price, for a good price, and then I'll be getting one of the lighting kits along with it, and I'll be showing it off to everyone who's interested once it comes out.
Very cool.
Very cool. Sounds good, man. Yeah. So, the Constitution class. I mean, we had, the one from the pilot, and then we had, the one in the rest of TOS.
The one from the second pilot.
The one from the second pilot, and then they, budgetary reasons, which is understandable. They just used other similar, they used the Constitution class and went with it. And I mean, that was understandable. But, it was kind of cool to get to see that. And then when we got in, sorry, man, I got a frog in my throat really bad today. And then we get to the refit. Now, I have a question. What is your preferred version? Is your version the TOS, or did you prefer the refit version?
No, I'm refit all the way.
Yeah, I prefer the. If you're talking about when you say refit, you're talking about from the movies. Yeah, I definitely prefer the refit. Yeah, I love the refit. Of the different variations on the bridge, I prefer the bridge from like Undiscovered Country. I think that's by far my favorite bridge design for the TOS Enterprise, honestly. So
I'm going to go the other way. Actually, I prefer the Star Trek 1 to 3, that old school kind of bridge where with the different, when you're pressing buttons, how they all make noises and and there was their attempt to go into the 3D graphics era, like the schematics that they were showing for, like, for example, the Kobayashi Maru. That particular part costs them so much money in compared to what they were able to do in, say, Star Trek 6, where everything was on a television monitor.
Yeah, but I mean, it's still, I agree. I would prefer the refit myself. It definitely has. I love the fact that in the refit, we see what becomes the modern version of a warp drive core.
Oh, absolutely.
I mean, that was the first time we ever got to see, a warp core like that. TOS was the only time we saw it. But everything since then, the warp core design was that casing, which was really nice.
Yeah. And that was a very big transition between the TOS and TMP era. That's where you saw that the warp core had transitioned from a horizontal to a vertical design, and that was one of the big changes that they were saying from TOS to TMP. And it just made it beautiful. I know that there is just such an elegance to that ship, inside and out, that I can't begin to explain. And yet, every time I see the ship on my TV screen, it evokes a certain level of emotion, because that ship is the unspoken Star Trek character. They've never said a word except for the computer, but at the same time, with it being in our living rooms once a week, every week for 3 years in the 60s, and numerous times over and over again, like when the series went into syndication, it's just, you develop this emotional attachment to that ship. And then to see the upgrade that it got, and you're looking at it like, oh my God, this thing is gorgeous.
Yeah, I mean, I remember back in the day having the little technical manuals and those fun things you'd get them at the comic store. Remember those things, comic book stores?
I used to have them.
Yeah, I used to have them too, and I used to love reading about all this stuff, the designs of them. Yep. I was always fascinated by the dimensions of the ships, the way the nacelles looked and everything, and all that stuff. And getting a look at the difference between the Constitution class original and then it's refit. It's just interesting to see. They gutted the hell out of that ship.
Yep.
I mean, it was interior, exterior. And I never even thought about this, but Myrr brought up a good point when I said that about the warp drive. Yeah, they had to you're going to have to restructure the entire ship to contain a warp drive that's now going several decks. So yeah, you're going to have to set that up totally different.
That's why they had to make the ship bigger. Even the saucer section is larger in the TMP compared to TOS.
Now I will say this: I'm not a big fan of TMP. I'm going to sit down and watch it again because I think maybe I've been too harsh on it. But I will say this: the whole drive-by scene when they're slowly going by the Enterprise and it's slowly popping them, that's worth it with the music and everything. Yeah, that one's.
I would agree.
That is worth it. that one spot right there is a love letter to anyone that had ever watched Star Trek in the 1960s and the
I would
animated
agree.
series in the 70s.
Yeah.
That was,
Yeah.
hey,
Mhm.
we spent a whole lot of money on this model. Look at what we did.
And it was beautiful.
And we
it really
did it
was.
for you.
That's right. And it was
Mhm.
so good, they put the same footage in the second movie.
Yeah, totally. So, Jess, I hate to say this, but I'm going to have to bounce. I got to go get dinner and everything, but this has been a lot of fun, and I will definitely be back next week. So, thank you all.
All right,
Thank
hey,
you.
Ambassador, do you
All
have
right.
anything you want to plug? You got any plugs you want to send before you go? Please do.
I'll do this very quickly. I will be streaming twice on Wednesday, once on my channel and once with Kathia Star Wednesday night. I will be doing a stream on. I'll be doing 2 streams on Friday. One with Stolen Loki on his channel, and then on mine with Afternoons the Ambassador, where we're going to be covering a Highlander. Saturday
I
night.
still can't wait to hear that one.
Yeah. Saturday night, we'll have Ambassadorial Wing where I'll be covering season 7 of the Clone Wars. We'll be doing a whole review of the whole series, including the final episode. And just a quick note Wednesday night will be a Disney Cult Classic stream. We'll be talking about, oh, for heaven's sake, brain fart, Bed Knobs and Broomsticks and the Black Cauldron. So, and that one.
Oh, 2 fantastic movies.
So,
very critically underrated.
Just a quick note on that one. That one will be at 7:00 Central Time instead of 7:30 because Kathia stars starring her review of Buffy the Vampire Slayer, and I'm going to be co-hosting on that one. So,
Awesome.
to everybody, to you guys, have a great night, and thank you again for having me on. And let me go on camera here. Peace and long life.
Long and prosper.
Live long and prosper.
All right, later, guys.
Take care.
Interesting what he
All
said
right,
about
we can
Buffy
go,
the Vampire Slayer. Did you know that Dolly Parton helped produce Buffy the Vampire Slayer? Like, I had no idea.
No, I did not.
I had no idea.
I did know it. I did know it is the first TV show to use the term Google it.
Yes.
That I did know. Yeah, that I did know. All right, so I got about 10 more minutes and then I got to go walk my dogs and do that. But all right, let's go into, I love doing this. Let's go into ships we didn't like. I'm going to say it right now. I never liked the Galaxy class starship.
Yeah.
I would have rather had the Enterprise C version. I love the Ambassador class.
And the modelers completely and totally agree with you. That was the reason why when it went over into the movies, into the first movie with Generations, the modelers were so sick of the Galaxy class model that they said that they would not be doing another Star Trek movie unless they destroyed the Enterprise D.
Yeah, but they should have done it in a way better way because there's no way that freaking bird of prey should have had a shot in hell.
Okay, yeah, that's a topic.
That's
for
another.
day.
That's another. But yeah, I just never. I mean, I don't get me wrong. I love TNG, but
I do.
I never liked the design. I never liked the design of that ship.
Yeah, I never did either.
It just looks like it wants to. Didn't it just look like it wants to fall over on itself?
Do you know what it is to me? It's like a space Barca lounger. You know, it's one of those things where you're looking at the designs from the motion picture era. You're looking at also, the Excelsior class. You look at the Ambassador class, and you're seeing this transition from the Space Navy into the Space Carnival Cruise Line. And it irritated the crap out of me since 1987, since the Encounter at Farpoint first premiered. I hated the fact that the Space Navy was now letting their families come on these things, and which had drastic consequences, I might add, in impacting everybody from Picard with his not liking having the families and children running around and all this other crap, all the way over into Cisco, who lost his wife and almost lost his kid from the whole thing. Yeah, it's that period of drastically.
I was like, You know what? You know what? That's a topic for another day too. Why the hell were there civilians going into Wolf 359? That's a topic for another day.
That was
They should have been on a shuttle out of there.
I said, okay, hey, guess what? We're going into battle against an enemy that we know relatively nothing about. Let's bring everyone and their families onto this thing. Hey kids, look, you're about to be assimilated by the Borg.
Kudos.
Have at it.
Yeah, that's a subject for another day. That's definitely. But here's the other thing too. This was one of the most annoying things. Oh, it can separate. Okay, whoop-de-doo. You've got a saucer section that has no warp drive and no photon torpedoes.
I kind of liked it when it separated.
Yeah, but it was like the saucer section was a sitting duck. When you think about it, it was a sitting damn duck. All it had was phasers. Now, granted, against maybe a bird of prey, maybe it can hold out. Probably. But let's be honest. 2 or 3 birds of prey, that thing's getting its ass kicked.
Okay, I'm going to set your... just do a little memory thing. Do you remember, like, way back, let's go 88, 89, how they had that little die-cast model of the Enterprise D that separated? It was just...
Yes.
Okay, so I had one of those, and again, this is also giving credit to what you're saying. You hold the thing, and you let it go, and it goes boom.
Boom. Yeah.
But then
I had the same damn toy. But
you take off the saucer section, and you put the thing down, and the ship is standing up on its own. And it's nice and sturdy, and this is exactly how I look at that ship from beginning to end. You take the ship, you get rid of the families, you get rid of the kids, and you have the Space Navy in the lower half. Let the Space Navy, please.
Yeah. I agree. Yeah. I never understood that family thing, but hey, that's Star Trek. I get why they did it.
But again, that's also why so many of the Galaxy class ships were destroyed afterwards. I would say, half the family zigged when they should have zagged.
The Odyssey was destroyed. Yep. The Yamato was destroyed.
Yep.
I mean, there's 3 right there I can think of.
Yep. Like I said, the family zigged when they should have zagged. That's all I got.
Yeah. I mean, 3 of those suckers went down, and probably a few others.
So my question for you is, what would be your second most loved ship?
Oh, my second most loved ship. I'm gonna honestly say I'm gonna honestly have to go with Miranda class. That's my second love. Mm-hmm. If it wasn't the Excelsior, it would be the Miranda class. What about you?
Yep. I'm gonna go off in a very different direction, actually. My second one, again, this is for its pure utilitarian purpose, where it can basically do a little bit of everything, is the Danube class runabout.
Oh, nice.
I don't know what that is. I just love that little... It's not a shuttle. It's not a starship. It's just this thing. It's just... I love that. It can have the
the Delta Flyer. I love the Delta Flyer.
I do like the Delta Flyer. And the Delta Flyer has it's got... Again, it's one of those things that it has its function where it's not quite a runabout, but it's not quite a shuttle either. It's that thing in between that serves that very specific utilitarian purpose. But again, I also love that the Danube can be anything. It can be a tactical support, it can be a scientific support, and it can be an engineering support. I just love... I don't know what it is about it. I just love the overall design of it.
I would say if I was going to go next, probably Constitution. We talked about that.
After Constitution refit will be
Sovietry. The Enterprise E was like, why didn't you come up? I almost want to say, why didn't you come up with that design back in the series? It just looks so much nicer.
It does.
It was such a nice upgrade.
It looks so much more purposeful. Where you can see. But then again, that's the point where it's no longer, you're no longer going in the direction of the space Barca Lounger. You're going in the direction of, we're here to, this is a Navy ship. Your families are going to be at home or so on some distant planet somewhere, and we're going to be there to do our mission and kick some ass.
I think if you think about it, if the invasion of the Borg and stuff, how about, the Dominion War? I think the Dominion War is really what started teaching, or even the Romulans. It's finally, Starfleet realized we got to start thinking more militant. And, it's not a bad thing to think, okay, maybe we need to put a little more focus on, because I remember Picard was never a big fan of, weaponry upgrades. He never seemed that interested in it. Not at all. And I understand that he was a scientist, and that's why he was on that type of ship. But it just, to me, shouldn't have been the type of ship you would think of as a flagship.
No,
cruise ship, yes.
not.
Flagship, no. Flagship
that is a luxury liner. That's exactly what that was. That was a luxury liner, and that was, again, it was a beautiful ship. It definitely,
don't get me wrong,
every single creature comfort that you could possibly imagine. Plus, they even had tanks with whales in it that you never saw. you know, I don't even know if this was a direct thing from Star Trek 4. Supposedly, they had whales that were crew members that were on the Galaxy class, and you never saw it because they were kind of close to that. Oh, what was that that show with the sea base?
Sequest?
Sequest, that's the one.
Oh, that one. Oh.
Yeah, so they were kind of competing in that time. They were competing in that time slot, so they couldn't have one look too much like the other. So, yeah, that was Roy Scheider. Again, paying homage, love Roy Scheider. But but they couldn't have those two shows looking too much like the other, because that show, it was underwater. It already had a Wesley. It already had, and it already had like some level of a cephalopod, whatever we call them, like a whale or a dolphin talking to each other. They couldn't, one's basically infringing on the other. Yeah, they couldn't do that.
Yeah, but, definitely not.
Yeah, but as far as
it had every comfort you could imagine. It's just its design just never appealed to me. No. It's just, and it's weird because it's like the only one. When I really think of Starfleet stars. Now, I will say this: I did like that in All Good Things, they paid homage to the Daedalus class with the Pasteur.
Oh yeah, I
thought that was a nice nod to the Daedalus class. And you never saw it on TV, but you knew about the ship with the balls, instead of a dome, instead of a saucer section, it was a ball section. Yeah, so, and I just thought that was nice.
Not only was that a homage to the Daedalus class, that was also a homage to 2001: A Space Odyssey.
Yes, it was.
Where you could see where that ship would have a distinct, a descendant from something that was not Star Trek.
And I like the concept of this because it would make sense if you were going to have a medical frigate. You want to make sure that it can be distinguished from other Starfleet starships.
That it is clearly distinguishable from all of your other ships. That you're not looking, if supposing that your comm system was down or your sensors were down, you can't be looking at, you don't want somebody outside with binoculars looking at, registry numbers and all that all day long. You want saying, oh, where's my medical frigate? Yeah, the one that looks like a giant testicle. Go that way.
Looks like it's got a golf ball in the front.
That's right. Head towards the balls, gentlemen.
Yeah, but it was nice that they had enough foresight to have that kind of a distinction. And that's what I always liked. The distinctions between Starfleet ships, even though it may seem anybody who's not a fan of Star Trek may not realize it. these ships designs had a specific function. Even
Mhm.
if the ship was only on for a few minutes, those prop masters wanted that ship to look distinct for just a few seconds.
Absolutely.
And I mean, that's why you have beautiful ships that you've only seen barely. The Steamrunner class, beautiful looking design.
Yes,
I
it
mean, one of
is.
the most gorgeous looking tactical ships
And you've
in
barely
all of
even seen it outside of a video game or a couple of frames in the Dominion War, and that was it.
Yeah. Akira class, another beautiful design.
And that one, realistically, that's the workhorse of the tactical fleet.
You know, that is going to be basically, if you think about it, that's pretty much when they finally mothball the Miranda. That's its replacement. I mean, it's the most logical replacement
Okay,
to take over a lot of those functions.
They will never, ever, ever mothball the Miranda fleet. The ships are just too numerous. What they will end up doing is okay, Mirandas, you know what? You can't really do tactical anymore because we have this ship that is, to
planetary
be honest,
defense,
better at it. You're going to be a space trucking fleet.
Planetary defense, planetary shipping.
Yep.
Hey, there's nothing wrong with it. You got to have that. Somebody's got to do it.
The Miranda ships are equipped with 2 fully functional cargo bays and landing bays that makes them perfect for being, for trucking, for space trucking.
You know what else? You know what else too? Think about it. That ship could probably be adaptable to put in an EMH.
Absolutely.
And that would be all you'd need. That'd be the only thing you need. You wouldn't necessarily need a full-time doctor in the inner system. You're not going to worry about needing a full-time doctor when your ship's ferrying stuff from Earth to Vulcan to Torellia. Mm-hmm. It's just not going to be that big of a deal.
No.
So it would make sense. But you can believe that the Miranda would be adaptable to do that with everything else we've seen it be able to hold up.
Yeah, now if you can just get the personalities right, you'll have no problem.
Yeah. But it is definitely a versatile ship, and that's why I think you and I like the 2 ships we really do, because they've been adaptable, they are functional, and they have served Starfleet for over 100 years. I don't think there are
literally 1,000 of them out there.
Yeah, and I don't think there's another ship in service that has been around as long as them.
Not in active service.
That is still in service. That is still in active service. I think everything else has been decommissioned since then, but those 2. They have lasted.
Absolutely.
They have stood the test of time.
And
I think
here's another thing that would make actual sense. Why I probably like these ships versus the TNG era so much is that if you are looking at a dreadnought class, okay, you have or even a frigate or a heavy cruiser. That's your Constitution refit class. If you're looking for your support frigate, that's your Miranda class. If you're looking for science, that's your Oberth class. The thing, and this goes back to this same exact point that we were just talking about, where every single ship has a particular form for a particular function.
Exactly.
And you know what? If you're looking outside and you've got nothing, if your sensors are out and you can't read any transponders. What you want to do is, visually see, what does this ship look like? Is this an Oberth class? Is this a Miranda? And you go to the ship where you're going to need that, where you need help, whether it be tactical, engineering or science. And and what irritated me coming into the TNG era is that those lines, while you still saw the Oberth class in there, and you still see the Miranda, those lines are so blurred that the Oberth is virtually never seen. Maybe what 3 or 4 instances where it was seen. You have the Miranda class operating as what the Oberth class was supposed to be doing, and then you have the Galaxy class that it's supposed to be doing exploration, but is ending up taking on everything. And so those lines are just so blurred that it irritates me to some extent,
I'm gonna go with you there. those ships are meant for certain functions, and
Yep.
it seems like they're really just whatever the writers decide they want to do with
Yeah.
them. And I mean, that's fine, but I get what you're saying. Each ship has a specific function. They had a purpose and a role,
Mm-hmm.
and it seemed like we never got to actually see them really well, except for the Constitution class. That one we got to see a lot of exploration.
Mm-hmm. I will make the one exception. At the very, very end of Star Trek Generations, you see 3 ships that came to go and help out with the Enterprise D. You had an Oberth class, you had a Miranda class, and you had the Excelsior class. Excelsior took the boat, took the bulk of the people. You had the Miranda that was operating as a medical frigate, and then you had the Oberth class for just to see what could be salvaged. I'm sorry, I think I've got the Miranda class and the Oberth class reversed. I'm pretty sure it was medical for the Oberth class at the end.
Yeah, I had to think about it for a second. I was like, "Oh, you're talking about at the very end of the movie,
last 5 seconds of the film."
the last 5 seconds. Yeah, I remember.
You have
it's kind of a nice fitting into that. But
it is.
Yeah,
it's where
the
Federation kind of lost its footing, but now it's kind of getting the roles of the ships back in order. I think that's, and you don't even think about it really. You really don't. This was, Generations was more of that handing off from the old crew to the new crew. But
did you notice this too? Ever since Enterprise, after that point, every time you would see a new class of ship, from Intrepid, Prometheus, Dauntless, everything, notice they don't have the dome shape anymore. They go with a wedge shape now.
Yes.
They go more of a wedge shape, kind of a tactical look there. And I just now thought about that. Anytime you saw new ships at that point, they started taking more of that shape. Mm-hmm. So that's a new evolution of starships that I didn't even think about.
And slowly but steadily goes in that direction,
Well, I think this is a good time to end it. Next week, we are talking about non-Federation starships.
Shall I ask my question?
Yep, go right ahead.
All right, the final
I've been trying
question.
to think about it.
What is your favorite non-Star Trek movie that you would consider to be your guilty pleasure? Now, Ambassador, before the show, he told me that his favorite guilty pleasure was Krull.
Oh, I could see why.
Absolutely. I do love that movie. Okay.
Flash Gordon. I'm gonna say Flash Gordon.
Like the one, like the shows, or the one that was from the 80s?
The movie from the 80s.
Okay. So it will always crack me up.
Who wants to live forever? Die.
Remember, the guy who played Flash Gordon was not the guy who spoke the lines in Flash Gordon.
Yeah.
That always made me laugh, just to find out that oh god, what are the names?
I don't remember.
No, it's just the family that did. Crap, I'll think about it later. But it was the family who, I guess the guy had left so early on the thing that they couldn't stand him so much that they turned around and redubbed all of his lines and had someone else pay. And it's an uncredited role. Like almost nobody knows who actually redubbed the lines. So that makes me laugh. So mine, I have this really weird obsession with 80s futuristic sci-fi with Cold War dystopia mixed with just things that happen in our solar system. My guilty pleasure on this one is 2010, the year we make contact. I don't know what it is. I can watch that movie 40 times in a row and love it. Not only every single time, but find something different with that movie that I loved every single time. And, Roy Scheider, John Lithgow, Helen Mirren. I mean, you have you know who Zooey Deschanel is, right?
Yes.
Her mother is in that movie, and you
No,
never
really,
know. Yeah, and
really.
and then you have some of the old crew. You have the guy that played, you know, Dave Bowman. You have the guy who did the again. I'm apologizing because I am just horrible with names. I'm not thinking off the top of my head. I am thinking off the top of my head. You have the guy who did the voice for Hal. It's just you just had this movie that came together. I just think it was great. I don't know what it is about it. I will watch it. I was watching, in the early '80s or mid '80s when it was on like HBO. It would show up on there every so often. I'd watch it anytime I got the chance to watch it, and I got it on a Blu-ray not too long ago, and I still just watch it. I love
Now
that
that's
movie.
now that's the one where it starts out right with "My God, it's full
It's
of
full of
stars." Right?
stars. Yes, the line
Yeah,
that was never
I have
in the
not
first
seen
movie.
it, and yeah, but I have not seen that in I can't even tell you how long. I'd have to sit down and rewatch. That's like the only thing I remember about the movie.
I
It's
just
been that
love it.
long. And nothing wrong with it. All right. With that being said, let's call it a night.
All right.
Thank you for coming in, man. I had a great time talking about ships.
Likewise.
And next week we get into some of the baddie ships, the ones that were actually meant for war.
Ooh.
Yeah.
Are we talking
non-federation ships?
No problem. We're gonna have a little talk
Yeah.
about that later. Absolutely.
All right. Thank you. Have a
All
good
right.
one.
All right, and live long and prosper or something.